Back to the Point. Hope you're doing well this Wednesday morning. Lots to dive into today. Been off for a few days here, but I'm back locked and loaded with a plethora of topics. And it's Wednesday, going to be a beautiful day, but I'm nervous this morning. And the reason I'm nervous, I'm just sharing this with all of you. Ted Lasso, a show I love, which I recommend you all watch, ended last night. And it came out about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was going to watch it, but I ended up falling asleep, which is a miracle in and of itself. So I have to watch it today. But Succession ended, another show I loved. Barry ended, a show I love. Ted Lasso, all in 3 days. I mean, this is a rough period. If you love television, there's some great stuff out there, and these shows are at the forefront of it. But I'm nervous to watch the last episode because finales stink for the most part of big shows. You kind of look at it and you regret it, and they're not always well received. I'm curious to see how they tie in the characters, what their send off is like. But if you're looking for just a positive show, you want good feelings in your day, watch Ted Lasso. Watch Ted Lasso because that's all it is in spades. You feel good after you watch it. It's a good feeling. But I'm nervous to watch it. But maybe I'm nervous to watch it because I'm sad it's over, And I loved every second of watching that show. But Apple TV, if you haven't seen it, Ted Lasso, absolutely fantastic. Not excited, scratch that. Nervous and anxious to watch the finale later today. So that's on the docket today. But let's get back to sports. Yesterday we got a lot of news in the National Hockey League when it came to hiring and firing. The head coaching carousel has officially begun, and there was a decision made yesterday that I didn't see coming. The Nashville Predators, just prior to the trade deadline, announced that Barry Trotz would become the team's new GM effective July 1. And that David Poile, the longest tenured GM in franchise history, would be stepping down and obviously being replaced by Trotz. So with Barry Trotz coming in, you have some new thoughts, you have new ideas, and I think Trotz does have autonomy right now to do what he wants. It's just David Poile is doing it with him. John Hynes coached in New Jersey, coached in Nashville the last couple of years. He's had some success in the NHL. And a year left on his deal, so it looked like he might return. But no, Nashville yesterday fired John Hynes and brought on Andrew Brunette to become the team's new head coach. So in the first year under Barry Trotz, Andrew Brunette is the coach, and John Hynes is out. I knew Brunette was going to get a job because I think he was too well liked. I think he did a good job in Florida. When Quenneville was let go, he won a President's Trophy in Florida. He had a good season as an assistant coach behind the bench this year with Lindy Ruff. And I just didn't think it was going to be in Nashville. I thought it would be with, a Washington opening or, Rangers. I knew Toronto wouldn't hire Andrew Brunette. But again, I thought there were some teams that would at least look at him and consider him. But he ends up going back to a team he played for, a guy that he played under in Barry Trotz, and it all makes sense. I like the hire. I think he's an innovative coach. I think he's a guy that brings new ideas. I think he connects well with the players, and that's all you can really ask for. That's all you can really ask for. The Predators are in an interesting position where They're not contending. They're not a very good team, but yet they have pieces. They have players signed long term like Saros, like Philip Forsberg, who are still good players on the roster, but you got Yossi, who's up in age. You just got rid of Matthias Ekholm. Matt Duchene is not a spring chicken. Ryan Johansson, who's been a Nashville Predator for a very long time, is an unrestricted free agent coming off major surgery, so he's unlikely to return. So Trotz has some work to do. I think Andrew Brunette comes in, and I don't think expectations are that high for him. I think he's going to have a leash where he can be the head coach for a team that isn't all that good, and Trotz can try to build a winner around him. I think that's going to be the initial plan for the Predators. Because with this roster, you're not going to win. But the thing for Nashville, you're not as in dire straits like, say, San Jose, where some of these contracts are just unmovable. Marc-Edouard Vlasic, you're never trading that, and you're stuck with it for a very long time. Logan Couture, another contract that's tough to move. I don't think you're trading Philip Forsberg, but teams around the league would still covet Roman Josi. Teams around the league, I think, would covet UC Saros. There's enough bad goaltending. If you think Yaroslav Askarov, who's currently playing in the American Hockey League playoffs, the Nashville's affiliate team, Milwaukee, is playing in the conference finals against Coachella Valley, which is Seattle's AHL team. So he's getting valuable time in the American League this year, playing into June. So if Askarov, who was a first-round pick, if you believe he's going to be an upgrade over Saros in the not-too-distant future, you have a trade chip there to improve your team, to move a contract off the books, and you're paying Askarov nothing because he's on an entry-level deal. So you got to look at all of these different situations and figure out how you want to handle them. And that's on Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz has only been a head coach, so we don't know what his temperament is as a GM. Where you look, if it was a Brian Burke who was coming in or somebody else. There's a bit of an intrigue in Nashville, and to me, Nashville's become, and this is something, Gary Bettman gets a lot of grief. Arizona, the Atlanta situation that was held on to for a long time, dealing with owners, selling teams has taken a long time, in particular Ottawa. But what I do think he deserves credit for is finding markets that you would not expect to be hockey markets, and they've morphed into them. And it's incumbent on these markets to be competitive, absolutely. But you look at Nashville. You don't scream hockey. They're having the NHL draft in Nashville this year. I guarantee you that's going to be a party. It's going to be an event. People are going to flock to Nashville for that. So Nashville's become one. Carolina, we see it every year in the playoffs. They're tailgating. It's a party. They love it down there in Raleigh. Vegas in the Stanley Cup final. Vegas is now a hockey market. They love hockey down there. It's a spectacle. But those are just three that come to mind of non-traditional places that have taken hockey, wrapped their arms around it, and said, you know what, we love this sport. We see what it's bringing, and I think it's one of the best things Gary Bettman has done is find opportunity where you didn't think there'd be opportunity. You start chipping away at land, you start chipping away at rock, and you find shale gas. And you find natural resources that you can then turn into money. That is what I think Gary Bettman and these teams like a Nashville, like a Vegas, like a Carolina have kind of morphed the NHL into, is finding jewels, finding opportunities to make money. And yes, you have to be successful. In certain markets, people aren't going to show up if you aren't any good. But if you can build a contender, every couple of years, you're going to get good crowds. You're going to have people buy jerseys. Merchandise is going to fly off, and you're a destination. It's a destination because who doesn't love warm weather? Who doesn't love nice weather every day of the week? And maybe Florida can be added to that mix with their season this year, and they're starting to get a fan base. People are starting to kind of adopt the team itself. So that's something I give him credit for. But I like the Brunette hire. I think it's smart. John Hynes, it just kind of seems like the team was kind of checked out with him. So you bring in a new voice, Barry Trotz. He's the man. Washington. Peter Laviolette and Washington parted ways, our favorite term, earlier. It was in April. So Washington's been on the search. They're contacting coaches, interviewing lots of guys, and they finally decided on their man yesterday. This one came out of left field. I believe Elliot Friedman reported it like everybody knew this. This was never reported on. So he might have wanted to make himself sound smarter, like he was in the know. I don't think he was, but I know he likes to think, and Jeff Merrick like to think they are all the time, but good for them. But Washington hired ex-Maple Leaf assistant Spencer Carberry. He's been the assistant the last 2 seasons with the Maple Leafs, he replaced Manny Malhotra on the power play, so he ran their power play this year, worked with the forward group, lots of experience, CHL, NHL, and now he gets his first opportunity to be a bench boss in the National Hockey League. When I did my pod last week talking about, I didn't think Carberry would be a head coach. But this is a new hire. I like that. I just don't think it should always be retreads. I think that's a lazy way to go about it. However, I don't know if Alex Ovechkin's going to love this coaching hire. I don't know if Alex Ovechkin and the veterans of the Washington Capitals look at this and go, this is the guy that's going to get us over the hump. This is the guy that's going to help us win. And the bitter irony of it is Washington isn't going to win, but it's hard to tell athletes that you're not going to win. It's hard to tell them that your team isn't good enough anymore and we're not going to try. I don't think, I've said this yesterday, Washington should not be in the try to win business. Washington should be in the tear it down business. They should be get rid of every asset we can business because we're not winning anything here. And it might sound bad, but this is just the way it is. I don't understand trying to win when you know you're not going to. When you're playing a game and you know you're not going to win, would you play it? Do you still play? You play it going in because you don't know if you're going to win. You're not. But if it's one or the other. Okay, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. But you go through the game. If you started before the game, you said, when this ends, we're going to lose. I know it before. How many people are going to play? Not many. Because you know why? What the fuck's the point? To go through the process to say, I already know I'm going to do this and I'm going to fail. Why even start? It'd save you a hell of a lot of time if you just said, you know what? I'll try another project. That's why you go through life and you find failure, because before you start, you don't know. There's optimism. There's that feeling. I can tell you right now, Washington, Pittsburgh, these teams with old players, you're not going to win. I know it. Everybody knows it. And I think Brian McClellan, who's the GM in Washington, is a pretty smart guy. And I think it's tough because he's a GM and he wants to remain employed and he wants to make money and he wants to feed his family. And that all makes sense. I don't blame him one bit. He signed Darcy Kemper last offseason. He re-signs Kuznetsov. Woof. Ovechkin signs a long-term extension. You make these moves to try to win. But you don't make the playoffs. What now? What really this is, in my opinion, I'm not the GM, I'm not in these meetings. But to me, it's incumbent, word of the day, on owners to accept losing. It's on owners to accept we're going to need to retool in order to win. Because this tribalism that's going on in pro sports, in particular in the NHL, it annoys me and it baffles me. Well, you can't even think about trading Sidney Crosby. You can't even broach trading Alexander Ovechkin. Oh my God, why would you even consider Austin Matthews leaving the Toronto Maple Leafs? That's tribalism. It's stupidity. Again, I've done this before, but I'm going through it again. Do you only remain at one job your whole life? Do you only live in one city your entire life? That is called moving. It's called branching out. It's called taking opportunities. Tribalism, I can only play for one team. I'm going to hang up my jersey when I'm retired. Wah, wah, wah. Boo hoo. Get up. Why? And if you're a general manager, great. A player says that. You can say it to a player. We're going to hang up your jersey and we love you here. But guess what? You're still pretty good and you can help us get some assets. So that's what I'm going to do. That's my tribalism is I want to remain employed when your ass is on a beach in Honolulu. When you're retired, taking your kids to the rink on Saturday mornings, I still want to be here. Or at least I want these other 31 teams to see, you know what? He did decent in his rebuild. He had the balls to do it. Let's hire him so that I can remain employed. Because guess what? GMs, you know what they have? Zero tribalism. None. Owners have tribalism, and for some reason, players endorse it. It's stupidity. It's stupidity. Loyalty is important, don't get me wrong. But loyalty is not given to everyone. I'm loyal to my parents. I'm loyal to my sister. I'm loyal to my close friends. But guess what? There are people that I know, but if I had to go somewhere else and I don't never see them again, okay. Was I not tribalistic there? Okay, well, them's the breaks. As Boris Johnson said during the Brexit deal, them's the breaks. But this Spencer Carberry could be a great coach. I only know him as a Leaf assistant, and their power play has been pretty good the last couple of years. So I know he's got a good power play unit, which is a start, because Washington also is pretty good power play. But do I think this is the coach that's going to bring them over the top? I don't. Spencer Carberry could be a good coach, and Washington could be the first job that doesn't go well, and he could be the Dave Haxtell that ends up in Seattle and has some success. Maybe that's the way it goes. Or maybe he's Dallas Eakins and he has no success anywhere. I don't know. But if for Washington, explore moves. Explore a Tom Wilson trade. Explore a John Carlson trade. And even, explore an Alex Ovechkin trade. And if the goal record would be great, I get it. Best player in franchise, no doubt. Won you a cup. Yes, he won you a cup. All those great memories. But he doesn't play forever. For Pittsburgh, our team is strapped to hell. But we're going to be competitive. They haven't hired a GM yet. Might be Kyle Dubas. He was never willing to trade the best players. Maybe Sidney Crosby be there his whole career. But to think, well, we can't even broach it. We can't. Wrong. It's crazy to me. It's pro sports. There's no feelings. There's no emotion. Make it happen. Anyway, congratulations to Spencer. on getting a head coaching job in the NHL. Hard to come by. Calgary Flames have not hired a head coach yet, but apparently they are down to 3 candidates. Travis Green, former head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. He is also coached at the Spangler Cup. Had a tough exit in Vancouver, but I do think he's a good coach, and he's been out of the league for a couple years, so he kind of needs a job here if he wants to get back in the mix. Gerard Gallant is going to get an interview. I mentioned that last week, that I thought he'd be the guy to get the job. Again, I don't think I have nothing against Gerard Gallant. He's from PEI. That's all well. I don't think he's a great coach. I just don't think fundamentally Gerard Gallant's a great coach. You look at all the teams he's coached, they are horrible structurally. Structurally, they play without structure. They play run and gun. The D are never set. They have success early because I think the players endorse it. They like having no barriers put on them. But eventually it doesn't work. He's never won a Stanley Cup for a reason, and he'll have 1 year of great success and then you move on. He'll probably get the job. I wouldn't hire him. And the third candidate is Marc Savard, who's been the head coach of the Windsor Spitfires the last couple of years. He's an interesting one because he started as an assistant coach in St. Louis under Craig Berube, and then he moved out took the Windsor opportunity, and now he's looking to get back into the NHL. Windsor got to the OHL final last year, and they got to the conference final this year. So he's had some good seasons down there in Windsor. But Marc Savard, of these 3 guys, Marc Savard's only been an assistant, so that would be, kind of up in the air. Very different from Daryl Sutter, obviously, one would expect. Travis Green, a little more hard-nosed. If I'm Calgary, you want a complete new sense, a new wave, a new feeling. I don't think Marc Savard's going to be a pushover by any means. But Craig Conroy, new GM, he would have played against Marc Savard, would have played against Travis Green. If I think Craig Conroy, a new GM who was an assistant GM for 9 years. So he had to work to get his opportunity. He had to wait, he had to battle it out, and, work under Brad Treliving and be noticed and finally get that job. It wouldn't shock me to see him hire Marc Savard, another guy who, as I said, was an assistant coach for a number of years, then went to the OHL, has paid his dues, and I could see him giving it to Marc Savard as a guy that kind of took the same path that Craig did. We'll see. But if I'm Craig, I think I'd hire Marc Savard too. Gerard Gallant would be number 3 on that list, though, for me, because I don't want the Flames. The initial thinking is for the Flames, to me anyway, is we had Daryl Sutter. He is so structured. We need somebody that's easy on the players. No, you can't have no structure because you're never going to win that way. Look at the 2 teams left. Vegas is structured to hell. The way they play off the boards, the way they approach the middle of the ice is cutting off lanes, cutting off ways to get to the front of the net. That's structure. That's fundamentally how they play, and it's why they've won 3 rounds. How about Florida? Tight checking, block shots, get the puck below the goal line, and work our way to the front of the net because we are physically stronger than the other team. That's their structure. That's the way they play. That's why they keep winning. And you can say, oh, Bobrovsky, this, that, the other. Yeah, but it's still the structure of the team. All their goals are a foot away from the net. Because that's the way they play. That's the way their team is built. They know that fundamentally. And I don't want to hire a coach with no fundamentals. And to me, that's Gerard Gallant. Toronto Maple Leafs are still in the GM hunt, but according to Darren Dreger, who was on Insider Trading last night, it sounds like they could announce their new GM as early as today, or at least this week. It is the last day of May. And all reports say that Brad Treliving will be the new GM. Again, no surprise. Did they interview anybody else? I'm sure they did. They gave somebody the interview, and you can't just bring in one guy. But Brad Treliving was the GM for the Calgary Flames for 9 years. Did not get out of the second round. He did the Tkachuk deal, which didn't work out. But at the time, everybody loved it and felt they won the trade. Pulled off a good move for Dougie Hamilton. He signed Jacob Markstrom. Calgary's been a very good team in his tenure. For most of it, anyway. He's got some decisions to make, and I'm curious to see what kind of authority he has, and if he's willing to be the scapegoat, if they do make big decisions with the core four, because Brendan Shanahan reportedly told them they're all coming back. Stupid. But Treliving will have to come in, talk to Austin Matthews' representatives in a month, figure out he wants to keep Mitch Marner in a month, and decide on Sheldon Keefe, because a lot of coaches are getting hired. He had Daryl Sutter. He's not going to bring Daryl Sutter with him to Toronto. But does he know Sheldon Keefe? Do they have any kind of relationship? Will he want him to remain employed? I don't know. I think Sheldon Keefe's a good coach. But he's Kyle's guy. He's Kyle's guy, and one could argue he only got the job because of Kyle. Yes, he was the coach of the Marlies, but not every coach of the Marlies becomes the head coach of the Maple Leafs. Peter Laviolette remains unemployed. Does sound like the Rangers are kicking tires on him. Some veteran coaches as well. Joel Quenneville always mulling around. John Hynes was employed yesterday. He was fired. He was fired to bring in Andrew Brunette. Brad Treliving could be talking right now with a new head coach that he wants, and then he gets set as GM and he fires Sheldon Keefe. No tribalism there, just business. I'll put it to you this way. If Sheldon Keefe has the same temperament and has the same lack of courage that he had last year at addressing his team, talking about their faults, the same lack of killer instinct that I believe he showed in the playoffs by changing his line seemingly every shift in the regular season and then not doing that the entire second round, I don't want him back. Are you a coach with passion that isn't afraid to call out your players? Or are you a coach that has no balls? Are you a coach that lacks that fire in you? Because in life, this has always been instilled in me. When you're working hard, when you're doing the work correctly, you get applauded for it and you get some recognition. When you got a report card and you knew it was going to be good, you weren't afraid to show your parents because you knew the reception was going to be good. You know that you get a pat in the back, and who knows, maybe mom would bring home a Delisio cake. But when you knew the report card was coming up and you were slacking and you weren't doing your homework and you sucked on a bunch of tests and you knew it was coming around the corner, you weren't that excited to show her, and you knew that you weren't going to get a attaboy. You were going to be talked to and said, what the hell's going on here? And it wouldn't have been a fun conversation. I think you need that boundary with your coach. I think you need to know that you're coached, and I think the coach has to have the ability to talk to his players and say, you are not doing this correctly. And it can't be just nice and cozy, friendly all the time. That's the way he comes off to me. He says all his emotion and all his negativity towards certain players, he saves it for the bench, yelling at the referees, because he does that more than any coach in the NHL. If I think back, Brad had Bob Hartley. That won't be the new coach. He had Bill Peters. That won't be, he had Daryl. So is there a coach out there that Brad likes that he has a relationship with? Maybe. That he would want to bring in? Or there's always this possibility. Do you bring in an assistant coach with a whole lot of experience that's a former head coach? It kind of lights the fire a little bit. Could be a Travis Green if he doesn't get the Calgary job. If you make him the highest paid assistant in the NHL, he might take it. Would Bruce Boudreau take an assistant coach job with the Leafs if he was being paid well? He loves the team so much, he might. Certain guys might want that opportunity. Who knows? But it sounds like Brad Treliving will be the new GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's so late in the process. My gut tells me Sheldon Keefe will be back now. But I don't think it's crazy if he's not. I find this Kyle love and Kyle Dubas is so great. He's never made a mistake. It's really quite asinine. He was a GM. He did the job. He won one playoff series in 5 years. Here's how I would put this. And I can frame it, for Leafs fans to try to make you feel better and really see the full scope of this. Bill Zito is the GM of the Florida Panthers, if you didn't know. In the last 2 postseasons, Bill Zito has won 4 playoff rounds. He has won 4 playoff rounds in 2 years. Kyle won 1 in 5. Since becoming general manager of the Vegas Golden Knights, Kelly McCrimmon has won 8 playoff series in 4 years. So there are better alternatives out there. I don't know if it's going to be Brad Treliving. That's the thing. But sound like he's getting the gig. So buckle in, maybe get some Boston Pizza, new sponsor, all's well in the world. So congrats to Brad. Where else can we go? I also want to talk some other coach. I'm going to get back to NHL with the finals, but NBA, Adrian Griffin, former Toronto Raptors assistant coach. I got this wrong. I thought the Milwaukee Bucks would be hiring a former Raptors coach. I'm right about that. I thought it would be Nick Nurse. It's not. Adrian Griffin is now the head coach of Milwaukee Bucks. Be his first opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA. Reportedly, Giannis really liked him, was the only head coach he wanted. And I thought Nick Nurse would have been a fit there. It's the way he coaches defensively, his setups. It would partner well with Giannis, but reportedly he liked Adrian Griffin and he wanted to bring him in. So, of course, Giannis will be there. Middleton, I believe, has a player option. Drew Holiday. So, same team. They're getting older. They'll have to make some decisions. Nick Nurse does have a new job, however. He is going to Philadelphia. He's the 76ers' new head coach. He pairs with Joel Embiid, which is an interesting partnership. The two are always remembered for kind of beaking with each other during the 2019 second round matchup, which ended with the Kawhi corner shot. Embiid called out Nick Nurse during those series for always constantly bitching. And Nurse talked in the media about how Joel gets every call. And now the two who complain about the referees, they partner up to see if they can get the 76ers over the hump. Joel Embiid coming off an MVP, coming off another second round loss. He's 30 years old. The Sixers will have to figure out what they want to do with James Harden, who will be a free agent, who will be eligible to sign a long-term extension, but reportedly he wants to go back to Houston, or he could potentially be interested in joining the Phoenix Suns and not returning to Philadelphia. So if Harden leaves, Tyrese Maxey would become the second best player on the team with Joel Embiid. So that would be a new partnership at the point guard and center positions. So Nurse comes into a team that, Tobias Harris has an expiring contract. Maxey, the bench players were limited this year for the Sixers. I think Nurse is a good coach, but again, you have to build a relationship with Embiid. You need to hope that his health can hold up. And who's playing alongside him? Because Embiid's great, but you look at it, Jokic is fantastic in Denver, but he's got a good supporting cast now. Aaron Gordon's figured out his role after all these years, and he's embraced it. Michael Porter Jr., he's getting rebounds, he's shooting threes, but he's not firing threes all over the place like he used to, trying to be the second best player on the team. Jamal Murray is a stud point guard. Could Tyrese Maxey become Jamal Murray? Those are big shoes to fill. Like, Jamal Murray's a really good basketball player. In particular, when he's healthy, he's an elite point guard, and he's got just so much oozing confidence that's what makes him even more special, is how confident he is that he's going to make every shot, that he's going to be in position to win it for his team. I don't know if Maxey can get to that next level. Does Philly explore trades around the league? Do they look at a Damian Lillard in Portland and see if they can throw something together for him? Who knows? But Nick Nurse is now in Philadelphia, and he'll be coaching against the Raptors all the time. And he'll be seeing his former assistant Adrian Griffin a lot too, where Sixers and Milwaukee should be battling at the top of the Eastern Conference. And other news, Bob Myers, who's been the architect of the Golden State Warriors dynasty, stepped down yesterday. He just said it was time. He said it was time for the organization for a change and for himself. Draymond Green's got a player option. Klay Thompson has 1 year left. Steve Kerr, as head coach, has 1 year left. And Steph Curry is still around, but he's 35 years old. This core is getting old, and they're not easy decisions. And I think Bob Myers, he's one to make decisions that he wasn't allowed to. I think he wanted more freedom. And I think he should be highly sought after. I would look at Bob Myers close to, in baseball, with the top. I just had his name, top man, the Cubs, former Cubs executive, and Noah. And he worked for the Red Sox. He won a World Series there. Now he works for Major League Baseball. I'm going to look this up quickly because I can't. He's a smart guy. Smart guy that now works for the league. He helped implement these changes. Theo Epstein, that's his name. Theo Epstein. He's a 3-time World Series champion with the Red Sox 04 and 07, with the Cubs in 2016, and now he works used to be an agent, and now he works for Major League Baseball. I look at Bob Myers in a similar way. I mean, he won 4 titles in Golden State. He was the man who brought in Kevin Durant. He let Kevin Durant walk, and again, you build a team. He drafted players that helped win the title last year. So this is an offseason of really interesting things for the NBA, because you look at the free agents, it's not a whole lot of elite talent. There's not a whole lot of guys that make you jump out of your chair. But a Damian Lillard trade could happen. Does the 3rd overall pick get traded from Portland as well? Do the Knicks, who made the second, do they pull something off? They didn't retain their GM yesterday, so he got fired. What happens in Boston? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. 2022 NBA Finals. 2023, you lose in Game 7 of the conference finals. You know the pair are good. They play together since 2017, something like that, and they've been to 4 conference finals, but they've never won a championship. And you look at it, you come from 3-0 down, you get to a Game 7 at home, and you get crushed. You get crushed by Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler. And you get crushed by an inferior team. The Heat were nowhere near as talented, but they beat the Celtics. What did the Celtics do? Does Joe Mazzulla come back as head coach? And if the thought is, well, he came back from 3-0 down, he got us back to that point, we have to keep him, stupid logic. If you wanted to fire him before that, fire him. If you liked him before that, keep him. Grant Williams, who I think had a pretty good playoffs after having a bad regular season, can he come back? He's going to want a decent amount of money. He's earned a raise. Can you afford to bring him back? Jaylen Brown, because he made second team All-NBA, this is how the pay structure works in basketball. You make these All-NBA teams, your pay goes up. He is eligible for a $50 million a year extension. Jaylen Brown's a very good player, probably top 25, top 30. Nowhere near top 10, he never will be. And he's going to be the highest paid player in the league. And he can't dribble. It's quite staggering for an NBA player, and he can't dribble. He can't. The only thing he dribbles is it off his foot, and it goes out of bounds. You have like 8 turnovers in Game 7, 3 offensive fouls. He was horrible. I'm not paying him $50 million. I'm not paying Jaylen Brown $50 million. And when you know you'll get close, but are you going to win? I think you could argue they should have beat Golden State last year. A wounded team, old, this, that, and the other. Size advantage, you lose. You play the Miami Heat this year with Caleb Martin, who was on a 1-year deal in Miami, Jimmy Butler, no Tyler Hero, no Victor Oladipo, hobbled Gabe Vincent, and you get crushed on your home floor, and you lost to the Heat 3 times at home in 4 games. It's got to make Larry Bird cringe. Red Auerbach's rolling over in his grave, not believing what he's seeing to his beloved Celtics. And home court advantage isn't what it used to be in the NBA, but come on. I'm not paying him to be my second best player to be inconsistent as hell and not be able to dribble and be the highest paid player in the NBA. There will be lots of teams knocking on this door. But do I think Lillard and Tatum would be fun together? Yeah. I do. And I think that pairing would be more interesting. And I think Portland would take Jaylen Brown. If Lillard finally leaves Portland and you decide to move on from him, they keep the 3rd overall pick. They potentially could get Scoot Henderson at 3 to be their new point guard, and you pair him with Jaylen Brown. It might not work. It probably won't. But it's something. And what I think for Boston is that you can get close, but eventually in the crunch moments, you need somebody to dribble. And if Jason Tatum is hobbled or something happens or he can't have the ball in his hands 24/7, who's going to do it? You don't want it to be Marcus Smart. He'll shoot it or do something stupid. Al Horford's Al Horford. He's not going to be dribbling up the floor. It's going to be Jason Tatum. He's going to turn the ball over. We've seen it time and time again. It was a good season for the Celtics, but when your expectation is to win a championship, ultimately it's a failure. For Milwaukee, for Boston, for Philly, to be ending this postseason and you see the Miami Heat are flying to Denver, you have to be saying, what the hell happened? Where did we go wrong? How are they playing and we aren't? Because those 3 teams are better than the Miami Heat. And yet the Heat win. The Heat get redemption. They lost in Game 7. At home to the Boston Celtics last year. They beat the Boston Celtics on the road this year, Game 7. Jimmy Butler was the conference championships MVP, Larry Bird, whatever stupid award. Conference final MVP? Why? Okay, this should be like the NHL. It's the Conn Smythe Trophy I love because it's the entire playoffs. It's not just one round. Now it's the finals MVP. Ugh, in the NBA. So stupid. Anyway, way to go for winning some Larry Bird awards. Magic and Larry Bird trophy. What are you doing with that trophy? Hanging it in your garage? Ugh. But the Celtics have big decisions. Milwaukee will. The Sixers. Golden State, obviously. But the Miami Heat are only the second 8 seed to ever get to the NBA Finals. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. And you look at the odds here. They've been the underdog in every series they've been in. Every series they've been in, they've been the underdog. And they just find a way to do it. But as we sit here today, the Denver Nuggets are resting up as the new betting favorite, minus 149, to win the NBA Finals. That was a couple days ago. Just find the going Fox bet here. The Nuggets plus 500 opened as the second heaviest betting favorite heading into the NBA Finals in the past 16 seasons, behind only the Golden State Warriors against the Cavaliers in 27-18 Finals, which they were minus 1,075. Wow. So heavy money's coming in heavy on the Nuggets. They've been off for over a week. Jokic he's also the heavy favorite to win. So this is the title odds here, minus 480 for the Nuggets. So this is how this works. I never bet favorites. You bet $10, you win $12.08. Gross. Miami Heat, they're plus 330. You bet $10, you win 43. So it's But the Heat were in the play-in game. They had to battle through it. They lost to the Atlanta Hawks. Then they had to beat the Bulls just to get here. And Nikola Jokic is the heavy favorite to win the Finals MVP, followed by Jimmy Butler. Then it is Jamal Murray is followed after him. So these are the three guys favored to win Finals MVP. Do I think the Heat have a chance in this series? Yes. They do. Bam has to play great against Jokic. I think Bam played pretty well in Game 7. But you can't guard Jokic. You can't shut him down. That's not a winning formula. But I think for Bam, he needs to set screens. He needs to open up shots for people. Caleb Martin has to continue to play at this level, continue to show confidence, and be this new and improved player that you never saw in Charlotte or any of his other stops. But he looks like a new man. He needs to continue to find success. If I'm the Denver Nuggets, the way the Heat play, I think Denver has a lot of ways that they can defend. I think they have a lot of guys that can guard. Because if you look at it, Adebayo will pair with Jokic. Who's going to guard Jimmy Butler? That's the question. If it's me, I'm putting Aaron Gordon on him because I believe that is Denver's best defender. I'll put Aaron Gordon on Jimmy Butler early in the game. Plus, he's just a physical guy. You do want to keep him in the paint, but I think he's a better defender. Caleb Martin. You could go with Porter Jr. Because I think Porter Jr.'s morphed. He's certainly morphed into a forward. Then you got Jamal Murray and Caldwell Pope with the Heat. Caldwell Pope, put him on Strus and Vincent with Jamal Murray in all likelihood. But I just think it's a tough matchup for the Heat to find ways to score easy buckets. But they're a smart team. They don't fire bad shots. They don't settle for crap. They find a way to find good looks to get themselves in good positions to score easy baskets. But Jokic is such a unicorn where he can score with anybody. And he finds ways to get assists on the court. He finds ways to be impactful. And a huge reason why the Lakers lost was, yes, Denver was a better team. But Denver wanted offensive rebounds. They battled, and they found a way to get offensive rebounds. And for the Miami Heat, they need to do something about that. They need to be hungry on the glass and don't allow second chance opportunities because that can be a killer. And just watching Denver, they love that high screen with Jokic where he just basically sets up like a house. Jamal Murray comes off it and he fires the three from the top of the key. Be aware of that. And, Bam, if Bam can somehow do something to prevent it, stop it, see it coming, get to the spot before Jokic. You saw them do that to the Lakers so many times and ultimately, it killed them. So I have a hard time seeing Miami making this a close series. But then again, they shouldn't be this far, and they are. So credit to the Heat. And Pat Riley now as a player, he went to 3 NBA Finals. As a coach, he went to 10. And I believe this is his 6th as an executive. So this is going to be his 19th NBA Finals appearance. Pat Riley. What a career. What a legend. And you think he's been in with the Lakers, he's been with the Knicks, now he's been with the Heat. He was a huge part of the Showtime Lakers dynasty. And you still see him, he still looks good for his age, sitting near courtside in his fancy suits. Looks like $1 million. One of the great basketball geniuses of our time. And he has an opportunity to win another ring with this Miami Heat team. Michael Malone get his first ring. He's been in the NBA a long time as an assistant. And obviously this would mean a lot for Jokic and his legacy as a two-time MVP if he could get his first championship ring. Changes the perception of you. Changes the way you're looked at. And ultimately remembered is you're an NBA champion. I heard Barkley say on Dan Patrick last week, he goes, I hope Jokic wins. Because I don't want him to be remembered like me as being a guy who never ultimately won a title. And Barkley says it doesn't change the fact that I was a great player, but people still, that's what people bring up to me. He said, I don't want Jokic to be included in that list. I want him to be a champion, to be a multiple-time MVP, and looked at as just an all-time great, which I thought was really an interesting analysis, an interesting kind of a just care from Charles Barkley to kind of say that. That tips off tomorrow night, Game 1 in Denver, Colorado. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow, but that begins tomorrow. Stanley Cup Final will begin Saturday. So still a little while before we get the start of the Stanley Cup Final. It is the Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers. We are guaranteed to see a new Stanley Cup champion. We are guaranteed that a franchise is going to win their first Stanley Cup ever. Vegas, second Stanley Cup Finals appearance in team history. Florida, second Stanley Cup Finals appearance in team history. Florida's first since 1996. As we head into this Cup Final, Vegas enters as the slight favorite at minus 130. Florida is at plus 110, but those are very close odds. This is not exactly a pick'em, but very close to a pick'em series. And if you look at the regular season, Vegas had the had the best record in the West, second best record in the NHL. So it's not a huge surprise that they're here. But they played 7 goaltenders this season. They battled their way through, and yet here they are. I thought their Game 6 win was perfection. It was immaculate against the Dallas Stars. They wiped them out on the road, and it started with their fourth line. And I just talk about fundamentals, how they play off the boards, their speed through the neutral zone. They came out, punched Dallas in the mouth, and Dallas had no answer. Dallas did not know what to do, and before you knew it, the game was over after the first period. Dallas looked old and slow, and they couldn't keep up. Nick Waugh, Will Carrier, Keegan Colasar started out the game, and they continued to floor it. Bill Karlsson has 10 goals in the postseason, the most in Vegas Golden Knight franchise history. He's turned back the clock. He's playing at an elite level. Barbashev's been a great addition. Eichel looks confident playing with Jonathan Marchessault. This team is very good. And if they play like they did in Game 6 with the constant puck pressure, Dallas had 10 turnovers in the first 8 minutes of the game. They are going to be extremely tough to beat. But again, Florida, this isn't about the regular season. They don't care. Sergei Bobrovsky has a .955 save percentage in the second and third round combined. He's the hottest player in the NHL, maybe other than his teammate, Matthew Tkachuk. He is so confident. He is dialed in. And the only worry I have for him is the layoff. Florida has not played since a week ago tonight. And the series only begins on Saturday. Florida enters every game, and their ambition is to win, but they'll do it by any means necessary. This Florida team I think they started out as an underdog. They started out as a team that everybody wanted to win because people hate Boston. They hate the Celtics, they hate the Patriots, they hate the Bruins. You'll want to see Boston fail. And I think for many people, the Florida Panthers have become a villain after initially emerging as an underdog. Why is that? It's because they are butchers. Because they hit, they fight, they might seem dirty, and they make your mother and your grandmother turn off the television. My mother loves hockey. She complains to me of many Florida Panthers players. That makes me like them more, quite frankly. I love my mother, but again, I can't agree with her on everything. Sam Bennett, he'll kill you to win a hockey game. To quote Brad May, I'll check my mother to win another Stanley Cup. Sam Bennett will do whatever it takes. Radko Gudas will grab your stick. He'll hit you after the whistle. He'll do whatever. It doesn't matter. He'll do what it does. It's regardless what he has to do. It's just he'll do it. To win, he will make you pay. Matthew Tkachuk, not everybody's cup of tea, but he's got 19 points in the postseason. For all the old schools out there, he's got a plus 10 rating, and he's been a flat-out superstar. These two teams have 4 lines that they can throw at you. And all 4 lines serve a purpose, and they play well. I'm going to get into the series in more depth later in the week. I'm going to talk about all 4 lines. I'm going to talk about the advantages for each team and talk about them all. Go through every player, go into great detail. But it's going to be a fun series. But just something to think about as we move ahead here. Who's more worried going into this series? My one thing is Vegas tough enough? Is Vegas tough enough to deal with Florida? Is Alex Pietrangelo going to have to bring the stick out again? He was mad at Leon Draisaitl. Imagine what it's going to be like after he's dealt with Sam Bennett for a few games. What's he going to do? What kind of hatchet job is he going to do on Sam Bennett? Or Radko Gudas? Or Ryan Lomberg? Or Sam Reinhart? It never ends with the Florida Panthers. They are 4 lines a pain in the ass. And that's what makes them special, and that's what makes them really hard to deal with. Entering this series, Conn Smythe odds. Sergei Bobrovsky is the betting favorite. You can get him currently at plus 210, FanDuel Sportsbook. Matthew Tkachuk, second at plus 290. Jack Eichel comes in at plus 425. Marchessault plus 700. Bill Carlson plus 700. Mark Stone plus 900. Aiden Hill. William Karlsson's got 10 goals in 3 series. If he has a great final at plus 700, I don't think it's a bad play to put a few bucks on William Karlsson, quite frankly. He's scoring goals at a really good pace. He's been good on the power play. If they win the series, I think he'll get a good look, because I think if Vegas wins the cup and they're the betting favorite to do so, who are they going to give the Conn Smythe to? And if it's based on the entire postseason, not just the final, which they say it is, it's unlikely to be Aiden Hill because he's only played for half a round. Jack Eichel's been good, but you could argue Bill Carlson or Marcia So have been as good. Will they give it to Shea Theodore? I think they'll give it to a man up front. I think Bill Carlson will be right in that mix. So just something to consider. I like him at plus 700. I like those odds, and I like. He looks confident. He looks calm, confident, cocky. Not a bad play to throw some money on William Karlsson. What else is happening in the world of sports? The French Open is ongoing, if you didn't know, in Roland Garros. No Rafa Nadal, but tournament's still fun. Saw a huge upset yesterday. Daniil Medvedev, who had won a tournament on clay for the first time in his career, heading into the event, is out. First round, loses to the 175th ranked player in the world, a qualifier in 5 sets. Huge shock. He's on the opposite side of the draw from Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz. So it opens up opportunities for a guy like Casper Ruud, who's in the French Open final last year. Like Sasha Zverev, who had a good run here until he was injured. Holger Rune, the young man from Denmark. Taylor Fritz, Grigor Dimitrov potentially, who won a clay court event just before this as well. This morning, Stefanos Tsitsipas, he is through to the third round. Easy 3-set win. Fabio Fognini, who always plays well at the French Open, he upset Felix Auger-Aliassime, Canada's own, in the first round. On this side of the draw, the men's draw playing today, you have Carlos Alcaraz, the number 1 ranked player in the world. You have Andrei Rublev, number 7th ranked player in the world, one of the most consistent men from Russia. Karen Khachanov, number 11, who made the Wimbledon final last year. Denis Shapovalov, who won in 5 sets in the first round, but Denis is one of the most entertaining and also, a very good tennis player in his own right. Cameron Norrie, who owns 2 victories over Novak Djokovic in the last 2 years and has been to 2 Grand Slam semifinals. And also, Novak Djokovic and Tsitsipas, as I mentioned before. This draw is loaded with potential winners, but only one of them is going to get to the final. It's a tough draw. You also get Sonego and Hugo Humbert, who are playing this morning. Sonego's an up-and-coming player. Humbert's from France, and he's had a lot of success as well. So this draw has a lot of very talented players, certainly. And it's going to be tough to get out of it, but it should make some really interesting drama as it goes on here. Yesterday, Coco Gauff survived. She won in 3 sets to get to the second round. Bianca Andreescu, Canadian woman, also advanced. She defeated Victoria Azarenka, number 18th ranked player in the world. So a huge win for her to get a win at a major, move on. Ostapenko, who won at the Italian Open, out in the second round to an unranked American this morning. The women's draw today, you got, playing Sabalenka, who's been fantastic this year. She's on court. Sloane Stephens, Leila Annie Fernandez from Canada. Jessica Pegula is already through. So the French Open is ongoing. Early rounds can be, you have to wane through until you get to some interesting news, interesting details. But there is a lot happening at Roland Garros, and you get a guy like Medvedev out early, send shockwaves through, and maybe more and more chaotic things will happen as the days unfold. Memorial Cup, Kamloops, final day of the round robin. The Quebec Remparts are guaranteed to play in the Memorial Cup final on Sunday. They defeated both Kamloops and Seattle, so both teams from the WHL. They fell to Peterborough last night, but Peterborough entered the game 1-2, so the game was meaningless for Quebec. They're in the final, guaranteed on Sunday. This evening, Seattle and Kamloops will face each other. They're both at 1-1. The winner goes to the semifinal Friday night. The loser will play Peterborough in a tiebreaker game tomorrow night. Looking at it, Seattle dominated Peterborough, and then they got goalied against Quebec. Rousseau has been the best player of the tournament, despite losing last night. He made 37 saves against the Seattle Thunderbirds. They couldn't buy a goal. They did everything they could to get one by him. Travis Milic was not as good for Seattle in that game. Looking at this, also James Malatesta has been he's been phenomenal for Quebec. He's not a huge guy, but he finds a way to be effective and have an impact on the game. And he did. He's got 4 goals in 3 games. He's a prospect for the Columbus Blue Jackets, was a 5th round pick, was the QMJHL MVP, and now has had a hot start to the Memorial Cup. Zellweger's looked good for Kamloops. Dylan Gunther's been all over the puck for Seattle. I'm looking forward to the game tonight, Kamloops, Seattle. You get Zellweger, you get Logan Stankoven, who I believe has 8 points in 2 games. So you have a lot of talent that's going to be playing at the next level. And the loser gets Peterborough, where Brennan Othman has had a good turn. Tucker Robertson was huge last night, and Peterborough's staying alive. So fun stuff all around. Should be a fun game tonight. I'm going to get back into baseball, certainly. The Blue Jays got a win last night against the Milwaukee Brewers, which they haven't had many wins. So that was good for them to get one. The Rays, I know they've dropped 2 in a row. So we'll get back into baseball. Big UFC event this weekend. Just kind of wane through some topics here because the NHL is ending. The NBA will be over in a couple weeks. The CFL begins next week. We got Roland Garros, then Wimbledon's just a few weeks after that. We will talk baseball more and more as we get into the summer, obviously. But it's an interesting time of the sports here, but it's also certainly downtime where the NFL is on a bit of a snooze. You got just an article here about the Calgary Flames. Nothing new to report. I just thought there might be something new to bring up with you all, but there is not. So I'll save you that piece. But there's the Memorial Cup, so the CHL season is ending. We will have the NHL draft, NBA draft coming up. So that's always, and then free agency, which is, I love free agency. And then for me, the summer, I'm enjoying baseball this season than I have in many years. I'll be honest. I think the product's better. I think it's more entertaining. The games go quicker. Love all of that. But the summers for me now have morphed into UFC. And I'm going to talk more and more UFC on the show moving forward. An event this weekend. We got a pay-per-view set for Vancouver in a week from Saturday. So we'll talk about that next week, certainly, with Amanda Nunes being on the top of that card and the co-main event, which is more and more interesting. But I want to dive into the UFC and talk about that more with you guys, just how I would book fights, the kind of stylistic matchups, why the sport is interesting, Also, boxing is on a really big tear right now. They've had some awesome events with Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron in Ireland a few weeks ago. We have Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, the Lomachenko Haney fight, which was also 2 weeks ago. Anthony Joshua. It sounds like Anthony Joshua may fight Tyson Fury in September, which would also be a massive fight for Tyson. It sounds like Usyk is going to fight this summer at some point. So boxing has had a problem forever where they can't get the two best fighters to fight one another because they can either be undefeated or you don't want to risk anything. But that's kind of gone to the wayside. Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, those two guys fought. Chantel Cameron and Katie Taylor are both undefeated. They fought. Haney Lomachenko got into the squares. Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford finally signed the contract they're going to fight. So it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see because you never saw it. You had to get Conor McGregor step into the boxing ring. And as I say this, Frank Saravelli, the Toronto Maple Leafs are putting the finishing touches on a contract that will make Brad Treliving the 18th GM in club history. Process could be wrapped as soon as this afternoon. Still some loose ends to tie up. First report at Darren Dreger. So certainly sounds like it's official. Interesting for sure. We'll get more into it tomorrow as we get details and what he wants to do. So, but Brad Treliving will be the new GM of the Maple Leafs. It sounds like as soon as today. And as I scroll through Twitter because that's where you can get other news and notes. Just want to see if there's anything else here. And also tomorrow we got the Memorial. The Memorial golf, one of the best tournaments outside of the majors, quite frankly. The Memorial, it's Jack Nicklaus's tournament. So the Memorial this weekend. Then it's the RBC Canadian Open the following weekend, and then it's the U.S. So great golf scene right now. A lot of great tournaments coming up. So we'll get into more of that as well. So that'll be coming up tomorrow. If there's any news breaking on the Leafs front, we'll talk. Any more head coaching hires, we'll be on top of that. NBA Finals begins tomorrow night. We'll tee that up. We'll get into some baseball. I promise that will be on the docket tomorrow. So until then, thank you all for the time, for listening. I will be back regularly. I promise. My little lull is done. We're locked and loaded here on To The Point. Happy to bring you as much content as humanly possible. So thank you for the support. Like, subscribe, everything you do for me. I sincerely appreciate it. Until next time, take care. This is To The Point.